get started here. We'll probably have a few people wander in here toward as we get started in the first few minutes, but a little bit of housekeeping, and then we're going to turn it over to Corey from the school district. No huge updates on anything really. The paving is still on schedule. A while back we sent out the list of streets that are on schedule to be paved this year. Same thing with the silent crossings. It looks like most of the paperwork's taken care of and should start this fall, winter time frame, start working on the railroad crossings. Our next meeting we'll be talking about, and we'll be back to our regular Tuesday, the third Tuesday of the month. We're going to have people from the appraisal district here to talk about our property tax appraisals, because it's that time of year again, and the market has done well this year, so I'm sure everybody's going to have a lot of questions, and they're going to come talk to us about how they come up with their numbers and their appraisals and so forth, and things that you can do and how to protest that and so forth. But that will be the people from the Williamson County Appraisal District. The month after that, May's meeting, we're going to have people from Round Rock Animal Control and some wildlife groups to talk to us about living with urban wildlife. This neighborhood's been here 40 years, and we've had some issues from time to time, but we've had one of the neighbors had a cat that was recently suspected. They think it was killed by a coyote in the neighborhood. We have coyotes here. There's been coyotes here for 40 years, and they're going to come talk to us about living with them and how to protect ourselves, why you can't just get rid of them and make them go away and things like that. So that will be our May meeting, and we'll find out a little bit more about that. Tonight, the main thing was everybody get a copy of the budget. As you can see, you guys have been very generous throughout the year. We're up to about $20,000 for the year, and we turn around and ship every bit of that back out at one level or another. If y'all were here at our last meeting, we gave $2,000 each to to Chisholm Trail Middle School and to Newport Elementary, to both the principals that were here, and they were greatly appreciative of it, and that money's doing a lot of good work, and we're constantly looking for additional things to do with that money to help better our neighborhood and better our community. So thank you guys for that. If you get a look at it, if you have any questions on it, we'll answer those questions. If not, we need to take a quick vote on approving this. Yes, ma'am.
The top two items, November 2014,
I thought I corrected all those. It actually meant 16. I thought I went through and scribbled on most of them, but that meant 16. If you look at the very top, it says 17. Don's autocorrect on his computer didn't read his mind and automatically correct that. So if you have any questions on anybody have any questions on the budget? Yes.
Just wondering what capital equipment was.
Capital equipment. What did we buy capital equipment wise?
What did we buy last year? Well, it's like coolers.
Yeah, it's like coolers, things like that we use.
For the neighborhood, the meetings and all that sort of thing. Anything that's like a business would be
Shed.
using to run.
Shed. We bought a shed. A storage shed sitting out here. Items like that. We don't have a lot of it, but a little bit here and there. When we need something, we'll go pick it up. So if we need a tool for something, we do like our flags or our figs, or what our flag insert gadget, things like that we purchase for just to do the things that we do, whether it's for National Night Out. We bought a megaphone one time, or things like that. So that's it. Yes, ma'am.
What is the constant contact email database?
That's when you get your emails, the neighborhood emails, lost dogs, cats, meeting notice, thing like that's the system that manages the emails. That's where we keep all of your emails in there. It's a secure system. It doesn't get farmed out to anybody. It's right there. So, anything else? Okay, with that, we'll entertain a motion to accept the budget.
So moved.
Anybody second? All in favor? Wait, back up. I have to do parliamentary procedure. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Okay, we've adopted our new budget. Okay, well, before I turn it over to Corey, any other business or quick questions, neighborhood things we need to address? Everything's quiet on the front, huh? Okay. What's that?
News on the progress of the overpass.
Which one are you?
I went to 6-1.
Or are you talking about the project at 620?
Yeah.
That's still ongoing. That's going to be a long-term project. Right now, they're still acquiring right-of-way, working utilities. Got to figure out what they're going to do with the stagecoach in, moving it somewhere, and they're in all the preliminary stuff before you, it's probably going to be at least a year before you start seeing dirt move, maybe a little longer.
I saw them working on the ramp right now.
Now, that's a different project. That's a TxDOT project. A couple of years back, they did the ramp reversal projects from 79 north. And to make those a lot easier, if you travel north on 35 now, you notice it's a lot easier and gets clogged up a lot less than it used to. They're doing the same thing from 79 to 45. There's going to be a lot of changes going on. The purpose of the interstate is not for local people, okay? And they're designing things to keep us from shortcutting onto the freeway to get to another part of town. An example would be, and everybody in this room has done it, where you jump up onto 35 to miss McNeil to get off at 620, okay? You're not going to be able to do that anymore when all this project is finished. You won't be able to do that. So, and it's designed to keep traffic running through the city as opposed to those that are locally trying to get back and forth using the freeway. So that's a lot of work, and also to ease traffic for those that are getting on the freeway to make it smoother so we have less backups. If you notice coming south, remember how just past you still have that just past 620, where the 620 ramp comes on, and it jams up right there before the next on-ramp comes, and that's where it gets backed up. That's going to all get changed. So that's the project you're seeing there. And if you look down there at McNeil, you'll see 2 new ramps being built. So that's part of that project. Anything else? Oh, yeah, I don't know if you guys have been by the park down here. The construction work, they're building the canopy over the playground, just in time for summer. So good job posting that, by the way, thanks. And I'm going to turn it over to Corey. Full disclosure, I am on the Classroom for Kids committee. Any statements that I make or my personal opinions have nothing to do with the neighborhood association or the views of the neighborhood. I've been on these committees for the last 20 years, so I get involved in them, I believe in them, but that's why he's here to talk about them. So it's all yours. Let me give you this.
Thank you. How are y'all doing this afternoon? Evening. It's getting dark out. It's still bright out at 7 o'clock. I get used to that. Daylight savings time has been a week. You don't really notice daylight savings time until you have a kid, and I have a 10-month-old, and that's when I really realized, man, daylight savings time means something different when you have a 10-month-old on a very strict schedule. Again, my name is Corey Ryan. I'm the Executive Director for Communications for Round Rock ISD. My goal here tonight is to provide you all with some information about our bond initiative that's going to be on the May 6th ballot, then to answer questions. We have some members of our leadership team and a member of our board here today who will also speak and be able to answer questions. We have our Senior Chief of Schools and Innovation, so he's in charge of all of our schools and programs, and it's Dr. Daniel Presley. And then we have Trustee Charles Chadwell, also in the audience, who I believe is a member of this neighborhood association. We have a former trustee, and Catherine Hanna, also in the audience as well from Round Rock ISD. Before I get to the bond, I do want to say thank you, because, constantly reminded about how generous our homeowners, our property owners, and our community members are in Round Rock ISD. From the checks, the $2,000 you gave to Ms. Mussey and to Mr. Swain to work at Deepwood and Chisholm Trail Middle School at your last meeting, we just had a meeting today, actually, with someone from a group called the Backpack Coalition, who works with several churches in the area, and giving back into our schools. And I just want to thank y'all for that, because it's not just about the money, it's not about the backpack, it's not about the food. In a lot of ways, it's about teachers seeing that members of our community truly support what happens in our classrooms. So I do want to thank y'all for that. Unfortunately, some of the times when we get invited to come to talk to groups, it's about bond and boundaries, and I had the pleasure of doing both this year. So I do want to thank y'all for inviting our principals out to speak about the things that go on in our schools, because that's truly what we're all about, is about teaching and learning inside our classrooms. Tonight I'm going to start with a video, because the video does a really good job at explaining what's in this bond package. And then I'm going to do a short presentation to kind of highlight more of what's in this bond that kind of directly relates to the Round Rock West neighborhood. So I'm going to kick it off to the video right now, and then I will come back and talk a little bit.
Rock ISD surpasses 48,000 students and crosses 50,000 students in the next 5 years, our goal is to continue to meet the needs of our community in the areas of growth, innovation, and safety. Our district adopted our strategic plan in May 2015, thanks to the voices of 13,500 plus students and community members. This plan represents a course of action for academic initiatives and offerings for the next 10 years, laying the foundation for our called bond election on May 6, 2017. The fruit of that strategic plan has already sprouted with educational offerings from the opening of the Wells Branch and Berkman Arts Integration Academies, Jolie Johnson Elementary STEAM Academy, and an early college high school at ACC campus. Thanks to the leadership of our Board of Trustees and our 100-plus member Citizens Bond Committee, we now present to the community a bond package that builds campuses, expands and improves classrooms, career technology programs, athletic and fine arts facilities, and provides additional technology, resources, and improvements.
Since Round Rock ISD's last bond in 2014, the district has continued to grow. It is projected that by the 2021-2022 school year, Round Rock ISD's enrollment will exceed 50,000 students. Round Rock ISD has worked diligently to accommodate new students through portable buildings and additional faculty and staff. However, continued growth has resulted in school populations that exceed the brick and mortar capacity of existing facilities. On May 6, 2017, the voters will have the opportunity to vote on a bond election, which was approved by the Round Rock ISD Board of Trustees during its regular meeting held on February 16, 2017. The $572.1 million bond package currently proposes building new schools, expanding classrooms at a number of campuses, renovating existing facilities, refreshing technology, and expanding access to fine arts and athletic venues. The bond is divided into 3 propositions. Proposition 1 addresses the highest priority needs of the district's growth and safety, including the construction of new schools, continuation of campus master plans for long-term renovations, improvements to aging facilities, and a district-wide technology refresh for $381.7 million. The key projects currently planned include a new elementary campus to address continually growing enrollment at Harrington Elementary School in Northeast Round Rock, which will increase to 1,600 students in 10 years, and a new high school located on Pearson Ranch Road to address continually growing enrollment at Round Rock High School, which will surpass 3,700 students in 5 years. Construction of a new high school will alleviate the immediate need for high school number 7. Completion of Phase 4 at Westwood, the district's second oldest high school, to add flexible classroom spaces, a new dance and ROTC addition, and renovations to band and lecture halls. Design and construction of Phase 2 in McNeil High School's master plan, which will include renovations for the cafeteria and facilities for fine arts, athletics, and career and technical education programs. An independent study identified technology needs to enhance safety in our schools, including door access panels, visitor management systems, campus announcement systems, and security cameras. All campuses throughout the district will be impacted by these updates. Aging buses will be replaced, and the district's fleet of buses will be increased to accommodate growth. Ensuring the equipment our campuses utilize each day provides students with a comfortable and functional learning environment. Through the Next Generation Digital Classroom Pilot, Round Rock ISD has provided equal access to technology for students across the district. To provide students with up-to-date, efficient systems, a district-wide technology refresh is included. Proposition 2 currently proposes projects to address the district's growth and innovation, including classroom expansions at elementary, middle, and high schools to accommodate continuing growth and enrollment, and the construction of specialized campuses for $133.6 million. In alignment with preparing students for post-secondary success, a Career Tech High School will offer engineering, technology, and skilled trade courses to align with the workforce needs of Central Texas, while providing opportunities to earn certifications and college credit. C.D. Folks Middle School will be transitioned into a visual and performing arts academy. To align with the program's specialization, the campus will undergo learning space additions to replace aging facilities. The $45 million cost would cover construction of a new school to be built behind the existing school. The design of a combined early college and health professions high school will help plan a future facility to offer early access to college and career pathways. The district's early college high school is completing its inaugural year, housed in portables on the Austin Community College Round Rock campus. Classroom expansions will occur at Brushy Creek, Forest Creek, Summer, and Caraway Elementary Schools to eliminate the need for portable classroom buildings. A 6th classroom addition and athletics expansion will be constructed at Canyon Vista Middle School, and the cafeteria and courtyard at Stony Point High School will be extended. Proposition 3 addresses fine arts and athletic facilities, including an indoor aquatic center, a 3rd outdoor athletic facility, and designs for fine arts auditoriums for $56.8 million. To accommodate our growing district, an indoor aquatic center will serve all competitive swim programs for hosting district, regional, and state meets, as a practice facility for programs in its proximity, and allow the district to launch safe swim and special needs therapy programs. To alleviate the need for Thursday night home athletic events, a 3rd outdoor athletic facility will be constructed to serve the district's varsity programs, including football, band, soccer, track, and lacrosse programs. Dragon Stadium will also undergo renovations. District middle schools will see updates and expansions to athletic facilities, including training additions at Grisham and Chisholm Trail Middle Schools, a track and gymnasium addition at Hernandez Middle School, and stadium enhancements, including artificial turf at middle schools district-wide. The design of auditoriums and parking solutions for Round Rock and Westwood High Schools will allow the district to complete the work from Bond 2014 for regional performance spaces to serve our communities, totaling $6 million. The $572.1 million bond package is estimated to cost the average homeowner approximately $2.23 per month, or $26.74 per year. There are 2 types of taxes that make up your annual school tax bill. The first tax is referred to as the M&O, or Maintenance and Operations Tax. State law prohibits that this tax go above $1.04 per $100 valuation without voter approval. M&O dollars are used for salaries and for paying things such as the district's electric and phone bill. Round Rock ISD has not asked voters to increase its M&O tax rate. The second tax is used to pay debt service on the district's school bonds. When voters approve a bond proposition, they authorize the school district to sell bonds to fund new facilities, additions, and renovations, and the purchase of land, buses, technology equipment, and capital renewal and replacement. The bonds are repaid through a portion of the taxes paid by property owners. By law, bond funds cannot be used for operating expenses. The current total tax rate for Round Rock ISD is $1.33.25 per $100 valuation. $1.04 is for M&O, and just over 29 cents for debt service. This rate is a reflection of the 2.2% decrease the district saw in 2014 and is part of the district's effort to continue to provide taxpayer savings over the long term, maintain the district's tax rate as one of the lowest in the region, help reduce the district's overall debt, and prepare for continued growth. Round Rock ISD is the only school district in Texas to achieve a AAA bond rating from both Moody's and Fitch credit rating agencies. Based on current assessed valuations as well as future projections in the district, the passage of all 3 bond propositions could increase the debt service rate from $0.2925 to $0.3026, equaling a $2.23 per month tax increase to the average homeowner. This tax rate increase would not take effect until 2020. As property within Round Rock continues to grow in value, Round Rock ISD remains dedicated to financial responsibility. Round Rock ISD has the 2nd lowest tax rate among school districts in the area. Election day is just around the corner, and it's important that you exercise your right to vote. Early voting runs from Monday, April 24th through Tuesday, May 2nd, with Saturday, May 6th being the election day. For detailed information on Bond 2017, along with voting information for both Travis and Williamson counties, please visit bond.roundrockisd.org.
There's a lot of information in 9 minutes. I'm gonna go through and just kind of hit some of the high points again about this bond. Again, our role is just to make sure that y'all have enough information to make the best decision when it comes to May 6th for you. So I just want y'all to know what went into this process and what is a part of this bond. It started really with our strategic plan in 2015, where we brought a community together. We reached out to 13,500 folk through a survey, through focus groups, and through a design team to come up with a strategic plan that asked, what do our schools need to look like 5, 10, 15 years from now? Those meetings were more about ideas that eventually would have some capital expenses. In addition to that, we are building off of a school district that has grown and expanded over the years. just to give you some context on how big we are, we're going to be opening up our 54th school this year in Round Rock ISD. We are in the cities of Round Rock, we are in Northwest Austin, we also have a sliver of Cedar Park in our attendance area. We cover 110 square miles when you talk about our district in its entirety. And we actually, in terms of building space, we have over 7 million square feet just of building space in our district that are our schools and our facilities. So we are a large district with a lot of facility and capital needs. This is our school board. I introduced Trustee Chadwell. You have our superintendent, you have our board president, Diane Cox, vice president, Nikki Gonzalez. On the far left on that front row is our board secretary, Susie David. On the top row, you have Mason Moses, Trustee Chadwell, Edward Hanna, and Trustee Paul J. Tidd. This group is the group who put the bond on the ballot. That's the way the process works. We had a Citizens Bond Committee review over $900 million in projects, make a recommendation. The board took a look at that recommendation, made some tweaks, and that's what we got for the official ballot language for May 6th. I do want to point out that the board voted unanimously to take this to voters in May. This was our Citizens Bond Committee. We had over 100 community members volunteer their time to evaluate different projects, but the focus mainly on the new facilities, the new schools that are part of this bond. You heard in the video the term capital renewal and replacement, and as a feature in this bond. Capital renewal projects are the large equipment and large systems that go into buildings to keep them operating well. So it's when your HVAC system breaks down, we want to make sure that we have an HVAC system to replace that. Deepwood Elementary had an HVAC system on the last bond. There's monies again because schools oftentimes have multiple HVAC systems. So there's monies again for Deepwood in that regard. Flooring is also covered in that, and so our parking lots, roofing as well. So one of the big things that we did that was different from Bond 2014 was we had a comprehensive look at our capital needs. We had experts, electricians, experts, HVACs, plumbers go in and evaluate our facilities, put all of these large systems on replacement cycles saying, hey, industry standard is that you need to replace an HVAC system after X amount of years. This HVAC system is in this condition, and they have it all color coded, so they're red, yellow, green. Red bad, yellow is not so bad, green is good. And that's what they use to do that. And you see this $900 million, and you're kind of like, well, $900 million, what is that about? One of the big components of that $900 million that got down to 572 was we had identified over $150 million in capital renewal needs. When we looked at our school district and what we thought was palatable for a bond package, that was one of the items where we addressed the most urgent needs with $78 million in capital renewal needs across the district. Most of our schools that are built before 2008 are addressed through some sort of capital measure on here. We have a great story to tell when we talk about our tax rate. You look at Round Rock ISD when we compare ourselves to our peer districts. We're very fortunate to have a reputation for several boards who have been very cognizant of rising property values in Round Rock ISD and have been very fiscally responsible in how we manage our money. I mentioned Round Rock's is a different community. I mentioned some of the size. If you look at 1970 in this, when we had the school district, we had 1,650 students. We project out to past 2027, we are going to get close to 52,000 students in Round Rock ISD. Currently today, we are 48,200 and some odd students. You heard about our bond rating as a school district. That means that the credit agencies view us as being fiscally responsible, being likely to pay back our bills when it comes to obligating this debt. That means that we can pass on some savings to our taxpayers when we go out for bonds. One of the ways that we do this, we see projects, and in fact, we still have some projects from Bond 2014 that are continuing to be constructed now and will continue in the summer. That's because we strategically sell bonds, so they're not needed until the projects are ready to go. So what that means is we will not, if this bond were to pass all three propositions, we wouldn't go out to the market and sell $572 million bonds right away. We would spread them out to spread the construction projects out, and that also allows us to spread out the debt obligation, so we're not putting a huge burden on the property taxpayers right away. I'm sure y'all saw I got my statement from my mortgage lender recently about my escrow payment going up and having to pay a larger mortgage bill even though my tax rate didn't go up. Property values are going up for many people, and that is something that our board looks at when they set the tax rate every September. And to give you an example, after Bond 2014, we had told taxpayers, hey, we're looking at a 2-penny increase, but because of rising property values, home values going up, as well as the tax base, we're fortunate to be in Round Rock where we have a very diverse tax base. We're not dependent solely on homeowners. We have a strong commercial, and we have a lot of retail and things from the business community that help support our tax base, and that also adds to our overall taxable values. With that in mind, in 2014 we were asking for 2 pennies. The board was able to actually drop it 2 pennies due to rising property the valuations in our area. When we look at this bond, if it were to pass all 3 propositions, a tax rate increase would not happen until 2020, and it would be about a penny on the tax rate if it were to pass, and if our current projections for our values remain what we project them to. So we have very conservative projections as to how much our valuations are going to increase over the next 3 years. And if they meet those conservative projections, we're looking at about a penny, which would cost the average taxpayer $2.23 per month, or about $26.74 per year. It's also important to note, if you're 65 years or older and it's your homestead, your property rates are frozen, your property values are frozen. So this is that does not apply to those over 65 who have their homestead. Again, you heard the bond video talk about the propositions. I'm just going to focus I'm going to hone in on a Round Rock West component here. Round Rock West is impacted in propositions 1, 1 and 3 directly. Indirectly in 2. Proposition 1 is the large proposition that addresses growth, innovation, and safety projects in our district. The big item here, especially when you think about this neighborhood, would be High School 6. Round Rock High School right now is over 3,300 students. It is projected to exceed 3,800 students. It could get close to 4,000 students if there's no relief for property from either a boundary change or a new school opening. And truth be told, the school is large enough to handle over 4,000 students. The challenge is that when we've done boundaries in this community, and when we often talk to parents, 4,000 has never been a number that has been palatable to parents in this district. In fact, most of our schools are built for 2,300, 2,400. Stony Point, Cedar Ridge are both built for 2,400 students. McNeil is built for 2,300 students. Westwood is built for 2,600 students. The reason why Round Rock is so large is because as we've done the master planning, which happened on the backside of Round Rock High School, the older buildings were kept to accommodate for growth until like 6 high school was built. The vision of this bond, if it were to pass, bond Proposition 1 would build a 6th high school, which would allow Round Rock to get some relief, which would then allow us to, in Proposition 3, to start the final phase of the Round Rock High School master plan, which would be the construction of an auditorium and some additional parking spaces. There could be also some demolition or repurposing of some of those older buildings at that time as well. I believe it's over $80 million have gone into Round Rock High School over the last 10 years just as part of that master planning, while students have been able to continue to attend school. Typically you have 2 choices. You can either renovate a building over time in phases that we've done at Round Rock, or you'd have to displace students and completely rebuild a school, or you would need land to build a brand new school. Land has been very scarce in this district, in certain areas especially. We are struggling to find land for a 36th elementary school in the center part of our district. That's why you don't see that as part of this bond. Also on Proposition 3, the impacts that would happen here for that neighborhood, renovations to Dragon Stadium, which is a district-wide stadium for football, track, lacrosse, band. So that would make it a more comparable stadium, not to the complete extent of a Kelly Reeves, but more comparable with the new press box and scoreboard to be able to service as a district-wide facility. You also see on this bond on Phase 3 for Chisholm Trail. If you haven't been to Chisholm Trail, the weight room that they use currently is in a portable, smaller than this for students, and then there's some safety concerns about that. So there's monies for a permanent structure at Chisholm Trail Middle School on Proposition 3. Indirectly on Proposition 2 are 2 projects I want to highlight that would be relevant to this group, and that is the C.D. Fulks Master Plan Phase 2, and that's to transform that school, the district's oldest school, into a visual performing arts academy for middle school students. We opened up a Arts Integration Academy at Berkman Elementary and Wells Branch Elementaries this past year. And it's been a great model for our kids and for our communities. The vision would be, as part of this master plan, would be to act similar to Round Rock, to build a new school on the back of the current CD Folk, so students would not be displaced, make that a district-wide visual performing arts academy to first serve the CD Folks attendance area, and then also to create seats for students who are interested in a robust arts experience. They'll have, obviously, students will still have access to their neighborhood schools. This would be an enhancement as to what we already have. The other item is a career tech high school on Proposition 2. The vision of a career tech high school in Round Rock ISD would be to be a district facility for 500 to 1,000 students to meet the needs of our workforce in Central Texas. The vision would be a robust programming that involves skilled trade students working alongside students who are interested in engineering and technology fields, all getting an entrepreneurship and business background to be able to be not only service the needs of our skilled trades and especially the needs of electricians and plumbers, which we often need here in Central Texas, but to also have that opportunity to possibly be their own business owner down here. We're very excited about the potential for this project. We've had a lot of discussions with the Austin and Round Rock Chamber as to what a partnership could look like in this, and we feel that there is a need in the Central Texas area, not only for the skilled trades, but for a program that is robust and puts the engineering student alongside a student who wants to get a plumbing certification, put them on a robotics team together, we're just really excited about that opportunity. Before I introduce, again, Trustee Chadwell to talk a little bit, I want to give you some access to resources, and again, we'll take questions after Trustee Chadwell talks. Bond.roundrockisd.org has this video, has the bond guide. We have a campus-by-campus breakdown as to what's in this bond for each campus, what's in this bond in each proposition for each campus. So if you go on this website, you click Deepwood Elementary, you can see what's on this bond for Proposition 1. For Chisholm Trail, you can see, because Chisholm is impacted by Prop 1 and Prop 3, it'll be broken out in that way so you can get good information as well. We also have frequently asked questions. We update that weekly, so there's a lot of good information on there as well if you're interested in learning more or sharing some information. We have 3 more bond forums. These are similar to this meeting. We'll have more staff there though to answer questions. We have one at McNeil on Thursday, and then we will be at Westwood and Stony Point the following week. Voting dates, April 6th is the last day to register to vote. Early voting is April 24th through May 2nd, and then Election Day is May 6th. So before we take questions, I do want to introduce Trustee Chadwell. He wanted to share some information about this bond.
You want to take questions now, or just give you a quick rundown here? I'll give you a quick rundown here. My name's Chad, as you all likely know. I live over at 810 St. Williams, right at Walsh and St. Williams. I've been there for almost 23 years. And anyway, I do want to say this. So I'm speaking on behalf as a trustee, but I'm also speaking as a neighbor here. And then also, I'm on the board of the appraisal district, which is next month, as Mike mentioned. There's going to be a discussion on that. So you're going to get your appraisal notice. As Corey said, if you got your mortgage and it showed the escrow, next week you're going to get your appraisal notice from the appraisal district. And it's probably going to go up 10% or something like that. It all depends, 9%. But I did want to show you something here just real quick, a couple things. These are some maps that I've had. I get these from the Reeves County Elections Office. Just to show you, as Corey said, you can see this very well, but this is a map of Round Rock School District here. And if you can see, this over here is Dell Diamond. This shaded area is the Round Rock School District. So this is Dell Diamond. This little tab over here is, can you hold this? Yes, sir. It's got to give you a perspective of where we are in all of this. So here's Lakeline Mall. Here's Dell Diamond. I just put some. Here's IKEA. Here's where we are right here. So this is our neighborhood right in here. But we go almost all the way up. We go past Lakeline Mall, the school district does. So all these bonds that Corey was talking about, they touch all the schools. We have 54 campuses. There's a lot of schools that are always in need of something. And then we also have a new high school that's going right here in the middle of the district, kind of near our stadium. If you look at this area right here, do you all know what this area is right there? There's no slash, I don't know if you can tell from there. It's Robinson Ranch, all this over here. Right now, there's no plans for Robinson Ranch to ever sell that land, or not anytime soon. But you know, in 5 or 10 years or so, there could be apartments, there could be residential, there could be all kinds of things. So all of that stuff has to be kind of calculated as a board. We kind of think out 20 years in advance. and just always kind of predict. So this, all of this where you don't see any slashes, that could be something going on there. Here's some space up here that could affect what goes on. But it gives you an idea how big Round Rock ISD is and what goes on. One of the things that was mentioned on this video was refurbish and maintenance equipment, things like that. And I will say this at the, let me show you this map here real quick. This is a map, and you all can look at this afterwards. I'll have them here. This is just a different one, but this shows the precincts and everything that goes on here. This has the precinct numbers on here. So right where we are right here is precinct pretty much 138 where we are right now. But it goes across the track. But I do want to say this, what made me think about all this was what Corey said was, let me sit down here, is the maintenance on the equipment on the schools. If you all have been reading about Austin and seeing what's going on with Austin, our neighbor to the south, and it was mentioned in this video, was, we have a great mix of residential and commercial properties here. Austin to the south is the largest Robin Hood district in the state. If you all know what Robin Hood is, that means there's too much money for too few students. So they send a third of their budget, the M&O, which Corey was talking about, they send a third of that back to the state, and it gets distributed all over the state, to the Valley, to out to El Paso, and just all over. So that just kind of tells you what happens in Austin. All those skyscrapers, those beautiful skyscrapers you see, they're very good kids in there, but they're high property value, so that's why they're skewed that way. Our neighbors to the west, Leander, have kind of the opposite problem. They have too many houses, meaning not too many houses, but the ratio is a different mix. Austin ISD has a, what they're calling a FAB, it's called Facilities and Bond PAC, a group that's getting together. Their schools are on average of 40 years old. I don't know if you heard this a few months ago, they shut down a school in one day. They went in there, somebody said something about, they didn't do a maintenance on it. Somebody crawled underneath the crawl space or somewhere and said, these beams are not safe. They shut down the school immediately. So what this video was Corey was showing is we don't want to ever have anything like that happen at Round Rock. We're very lucky. We have a very competent maintenance team and a facilities team that goes around. We also have the bond committee that goes out and looks in that long list that he was talking about, $900 million worth of things. That's all part of it. So anyway, I'm just saying that there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on in the district. There's a lot of activity. And as you read in the paper, there was something today in the paper about how Williamson County continues to grow. I'm sure everybody sees that on a regular basis. People are still moving here. Round Rock ISD is recognized across the state and even across the country for being very innovative in its programs and the way we handle our students. A lot of that I give credit to the administration. I just kind of on the board, I kind of oversee it. Catherine, of course, was the board president before I was, and she had children who went through the district. My kids, my two sons went to Deepwood, Chisholm, and Round Rock. And anyway, so there's a lot of great things that are going on here, and I will say one more thing, emphasize, as Corey said, Round Rock ISD out of 1,200 districts in the entire state. So Leander, Austin, Hutto, Taylor, Florence, Houston, Dallas, Round Rock ISD is the only one that has it has the best bond rating. We used to be in the top 10, then we got better and better. So a lot of that goes to good fiscal management, and a lot of it has to go with the community that's very involved. So this community is very strongly committed to making Round Rock, the school district, work well. We're also lucky that we do have good roads, all these bridges and things like that. We have a good mix of all that. So I will say one more thing, and then I'll wrap up here. You'll probably, if you didn't get this in the mail, you'll probably get it. It's called ProTax. I will say this. So put this on your calendar for next month. I put in a plug for Mike. Alvin Langford, who is the chief appraiser, will be here, and he'll show you how he comes up with the number that your house is appraised at. And I'll tell you, I'll finish with an anecdote real quick. A friend of mine that I've known probably for 30 years, he's in the same business I am, the semiconductor high-tech business. I was talking to him last week, and then I called him tonight again to confirm, and he said, I was so mad at that Travis County appraisal district. He said, I went over there and I protested. And he said, I had pictures, I had documentation, I had sales figures, I showed him all those things. And this is he lives down in Westlake, so it's probably a pretty expensive house. He said they agreed to knock off $100,000 off the price of this house. And he said, I don't believe that's good enough. I'm going to call these guys at ProTax, either ProTax or another one. And so he went, he protested, and he went again, and they said, okay, we don't, what we've offered you, we're going to give you one more chance. You want $100,000, or you want to take what the appraisal review board? He ended up only getting $50,000 knocked off. So anyway, Alvin Langford will tell you, these guys, you're welcome to use them, but he will also do a great job if you ever protest your property. He'll do a great job of justifying that. So I'm going to turn this back over to Corey, and I'll be hanging around if you have any questions, and then I'll be here next month as well with Alvin regarding the appraisal. So, all right, I'll do that back. Corey, thanks.
Do we have any questions about the bond? Yes, sir.
I got a bunch of questions. Primarily, I was curious about the safety systems that were being requested, the access control badging system, the student badge system. What's the justification for that?
Great question, and I will go into more detail with you if you'd like after the end of the meeting, but I'll give you the skinny. So what we did as a school district is we brought in a third party this summer and in the fall that assessed all of our safety systems, most of the digital technology. If you've ever been to our school, we have a system where if you're a visitor, you get badged in. You get a sticker on with your driver's license picture on it as well. We have electronic badge access doors, so staff members can get in, make sure we keep doors locked as best as we can. And in fact, there are systems that are part of this recommendation to make sure that doors can't be propped open in our school. Because we had a third party come in, they assessed our systems, and then they made a recommendation. We took that recommendation to a committee on our Citizens Bond Committee. They evaluated that, prioritized, and ultimately, almost all of the recommendations were funded. Some of them I think we're seeing as some fluff. But it includes fire alarms, it includes replacing access panels to get into doors for electronic entry as those age out. All of the visitor management systems, they all need to be, they are computer systems that need to be replaced as those computers age out. We're looking at, or it's on the bond, it is a GPS system for all of our school buses so that you can see where a school bus is, if you're shopping on a school bus, where that bus is currently, to be able to get information. The bulk of that is updating and the bulk of those dollars though for that is security cameras, replacing aging security cameras, increasing the amount of security cameras, not only to protect students, but to protect property, and the fire alarms, making sure the fire alarms are all consistent. Those are the higher dollar numbers as part of that, but it's a third party audit, and those are the dollars.
Do you have a vandalism problem now where you need more surveillance cameras, or have you lost any school buses where you need GPS?
So that's a great question about the need for security cameras and the GPS system on the school buses. We do get a lot of questions about school buses and transportation, and parents have used that, and that is a relatively low dollar amount on this bond. With regards to security cameras, Dr. Presley, as a former principal, can speak to this probably better than I can, but oftentimes when we have things happen on campuses, oftentimes we rely on security cameras to be able to see and get an idea and a vision of what happens. Getting those cameras replaced, you just look at the cameras that you have. If you have cameras like these here, the technology improves dramatically year over year, so replacing a camera that's 6-7 years old is an identified need as they get significantly better and cheaper as they get better. So this is
what problem can't you solve with the cameras you have now?
That's a great question. So again, it's about the age of those cameras and how they age out, and the ability to add more.
With the resolution.
Resolution changes, being able to see better in the dark, being able to get wider angles and things like that.
And the argument that video and surveillance is necessary in today's age, everyone wants to see a video if something happens. That makes sense. I'm more wondering about the justification for the badging system. Since working in a company that uses the badging system myself, it's fairly ineffective if you just show up at the right time. So what is has there been issues of people sneaking into the schools, or why is there in the first place?
So regarding the needs of the badging system, I will say most of our doors do have badging systems currently. I will say that in managing a district as large as us, and I said 7 million plus square feet, to go to a hard key system would be very challenging for all doors. We already have, and in fact there was an item on this bond to standardize and replace keys, which was very expensive just for it is. It took millions of dollars to replace keys. That was not included on part of the bond that was evaluated out. But to be able to just manage keys for a school district or an organization with 6,000 people,
No, that makes sense. But what's the student badge system? So all the students would need to badge into the school?
So currently, students do get badges. It's not to get into the school, but they do have ID badges. So that is to replace the printers that those badges are printed on at the campuses. And again, that was a very, that was a smaller component of the bond, but that was again another thing that is a capital item that was something that will live 5, 6, 7 years.
It's just the way that it's phrased, it implies that students have a badge in the schools.
They do have badges, but yes, it is not a badge to unlock, but they're very similar to the badges that we have to unlock facilities. So they look just like this, they're just a little thinner, with a similar printer. And there are possibilities for technology into that. There are some systems that we evaluated where students would check in on the bus, where they would badge in when they get on the bus, and you'd be able to know, confirm that they're on the bus. Maybe you wouldn't be surprised. I've been surprised in school districts on how many times we often get calls where a student didn't get on the bus. Oftentimes the kid is actually in their bedroom or at a friend's house and didn't come home. We get very frantic and very scared parents when that does happen. I mean, it's not like, one a week you probably get a phone call. Where's my kid? Oftentimes they're at a friend's house. That is something that we have been asked to take a look at. That is also a possibility.
So what was wrong with the playgrounds?
It's a great question. So on this bond, there are upgrades to playgrounds across the district. Playgrounds, as I drove past on Round Rock West, I actually saw a brand new playground being put in here that actually looks similar to some of our new model playgrounds. We have playgrounds on replacement cycles, just like we have flooring and HVAC systems. This bond addresses aging playgrounds across our district and also adds some features. It adds a soft rubbery foam rather than the pea gravel, which was a safety concern that was able to address with the new playground model at a minimal cost. And then the shading and overhead, oftentimes, and most of our playgrounds don't have shading. So these new playgrounds would have shading on all of them that were part of this bond. And I understand that's actually part of your playground here in Round Rock West. Those are the items.
I guess my last, one question, the design for the auditorium parking solution, because it says design here, but I thought in the video it said something about $6 million to finish the auditoriums. Was that for something else?
So on this bond of Proposition 3 for Westwood and Round Rock High Schools, which have been ongoing master plans where the schools have been renovated while students have been occupying it, you'll see items to design auditoriums. In Bond 2014, we designed and had construction funding for auditoriums at Cedar Ridge and Stony Point High Schools. The idea was we would create a regional auditorium to service not only that high school and those arts programs, but the area schools. The vision with this is that we can't complete the master plan phase for Round Rock in this bond because we need a 6th high school to be able to open to provide Round Rock the enrollment relief to free up the buildings that are currently being used. But if we were proactive with some design dollars, as soon as the 6th high school to open if this bond passes, we could have a facility design which allows it to open at an accelerated pace as soon as funding becomes available. For example, in this bond, which is different from the last bond, we have gone through the design phase thanks to previously saved dollars that our board and finance team have worked to find over the past years to be able to fund the design of the 6th high school. What that means is that we were able to start, the voters approved this, we were able to start construction much quicker than we've done in Bond 2014 with schools. With Pearson Ranch Middle Schools opening up next year, which was part of Bond 2014 because the design work hadn't been done, we had to wait a year and a half to 2 years for construction. We had to do an environmental study that was elongated as we were looking for salamanders and compliance with regulations. We've already done all of that now. That puts us in a unique position to be able to quicker provide relief to Round Rock High School. So the design dollars allowed us to be proactive in a similar vein where you would have funding to be able to, when funding becomes available, to put that on the ground in a quicker manner.
Okay. And my last question is about the athletic facilities. So there's enhancements for hosting and the weight room for middle schoolers seemed a little odd. I just didn't associate weight rooms with middle school.
So athletic facilities at middle school, oftentimes when we go to talk to parents, it's about equity. It's about this school in this district has this school doesn't have that. We're very fortunate that we've had the opportunity, thanks to bond dollars, to be able to build new schools. This is the athletic facilities at Chisholm Trail and Grissom are to kind of address that inequity that currently exists, and as well as at Hernandez with the gym addition. Currently, right now, if you go down to Walsh or Cedar Valley, they have an indoor weight room and athletic training facility for middle school students. Chisholm is in a portable building similar to this. I'm not a football coach by any stretch of the imagination. I'm sure Dr. Presley did a conclusion to give you some more detail about what the need is in that. What I can tell you, it's an equity issue and why it got onto the bond. The field enhancements for middle schools are tied to some concession stands that competitive, the fields have host facilities and host games, and then some enhancements to the fields to make them more durable and safer to the actual field and grassing. The idea is that the parents of our students who are a part of our athletics programs and our fine arts programs that compete on these fields oftentimes are some of our most passionate parents. And to be able to provide, basic essentials of a brick and mortar bathroom and concession stand kind of facility where it makes sense, or there's hosting lots of athletic events. That was the vision.
I can say there are 11 middle schools, 11 counting the one that's opening next fall. They all have indoor training facilities for our kids at the middle school level. And it addresses the needs of both male and female athletes. The only two that don't have that currently, or actually there's three if you include CD Folks. But Grisham's middle school facility is basically in a storage shed. They have weights outside of a storage shed that's not heated or cooled. Chisholm Trail has a portable building that's about half the size of the room we're in now. So when you think about the number of male and female athletes that come in there with weight equipment, and they can't do the clean and jerk, they can only do the clean, because if they did the jerk, they would hit the ceiling. So those were two middle schools that we saw a need that we really needed to give them a better training facility for their middle school athletes. And once again, it was Chisholm Trail and Grisham. CD Folks has a similar situation that's not as good, but also you saw in the bond and transforming CD Folks into a fine arts academy. The need would be less than there for a training facility, a hardball training facility for the kids at CD Folks.
Yes, sir.
Does the Austin School District have an indoor aquatic center?
The question was about the aquatic center. I know when we looked at school districts our size, Mansfield, drawing a blank.
Louisville, Rockwall.
Louisville's a district that oftentimes gets compared to us in terms of size and demographics, have indoor pools. Ultimately, why there is an indoor aquatic center on this bond is because we went through a third-party feasibility study as well in 2015, and into 2016 is when that was concluded, as to what are the needs for Round Rock ISD for an indoor swimming program. Currently, all 5 of our high school competitive swim programs all practice outside, and there's no venue for them to train or host meets, and then there's not any large indoor pools in the Central Texas area other than the Jamil Center down at UT, which is very high usage rate and not available readily. The vision for this pool was not only to serve our competitive swim programs, is also to introduce a safe swim program to bring in elementary school students probably in 2nd or 3rd grade. So we currently have over 3,000 students in a 3rd grade right now around Rock ISD, to serve them in to get a safe swim program, and then also to make sure that our special needs students are getting a safe swim and a therapy program as well, and to work with the community. As part of that feasibility study, so there's a feasibility study that came out, part of 3 entities coming together to look and say, hey, what are the needs of indoor or for aquatics in Round Rock? So it was the school district, it was the YMCA, and it was the city of Round Rock. And what that study said is, hey, what do these 3 entities need separately to meet their needs for a new facility, and what could they do together to share costs and to share operating costs and share costs for the actual construction of a building. What we put as part of this bond was the item that came out of that feasibility study and met the needs of Round Rock ISD, which was a $22 million facility. The specs were in the video, and I'd be happy to share them. They're in my binder here.
So, is that strictly for the school district?
The $22 million would be the facility that would meet the needs of the school district identified by the study. However, we are working with the city and possibly the YMCA or a partner out there that would help us share operational costs and possibly share some of the expenses in terms of building a larger facility that can do more. The idea is that the Round Rock program Round Rock ISD wants to do the things that I mentioned. The city of Round Rock would be in it for tourism dollars to be able to attract area and statewide meets and competitions to bring in tax dollars. The YMCA is looking for an opportunity to either expand or relocate a facility. There's a possibility, because oftentimes the brick and mortar costs in a pool aren't what the concern would be of a school district, is the operating expenses. So we are currently, talking to anybody, just as we would with anything, to be able to provide and share costs to maximize efficiencies and to be able to continue to meet our students. Our charge is to build something that this bond passes, to serve Round Rock ISD students and to meet our needs first. Any opportunity we can have to enhance or provide quality and efficiency, we would also take that.
So if it's strictly Round Rock School District, then is this going to be used year-round, not going to be used during the summer, just sit idle during the summer?
That's a great question, and although we would need the bond to pass before I could give you a specific schedule in terms of how it would be used in terms of community or anything, I can tell you that we have a great reputation for utilizing facilities year-round and for using facilities from a rental perspective. Just next week, or 2 weeks from now, the Performing Arts Center at McNeil High School, that's a district-wide facility, is actually going to be hosting the UIL State 1-Act competition, 1 and 2-Act competition, so that's a dramatic competition for high school students. That'll be the state location for that. Kelly Reeves Athletic Complex, which is our district-wide athletic facility, which has offices as well as host competitions. They actually oftentimes are not only being used as a location for, Pee Wee football tournaments, like state area ones, but also commercials. And I think there was a movie film there this past year, where we collect rental dollars on that as well.
Marching band contests.
And marching band is, when we talk about, oftentimes we probably pigeonhole our stadiums as.
No, she's talking about, the example, I was raising my hand, I wanted to bring some up, kind of go where, I know where you're going with your question. If you take you back a few years before Corey's time, but when we had the bond election for the Palace, everybody remembers the Kelly Reeves Athletic Center, and everything blew everybody's mind. And now that thing's pretty much busy 24/7. I mean, and it is am I correct, it's a revenue producer for the district?
I don't have the revenue numbers in front. It does generate revenue.
It generates revenue, so, but they can't say, yes, we're gonna pass $22 million bond, we're gonna build this, and we're gonna get money from the city, and we're gonna get money from private swim clubs, they can't say that. But if you just look at what the Kelly Reeves facility and the Performing Arts Center has done over the years, since they were built, they are booked 24/7 from outside use.
So does that mean that we won't heat the pool in the winter over here by the high school?
So the Mickey Kresbach building over here by the high school is actually owned by the city. So I would direct that question to our city partners.
I'll give you just a real quick snapshot of that. So I don't know if you've been driven by that Kelly Reeves in the morning in January. Those kids are out there, they swim early in the morning. You see steam coming up.
Right.
I drive by there on a pretty regular basis, going over to HEB, come back at 9 o'clock. I'm coming out of a board meeting before at 8:45, and there's people swimming there. I'll go over and I'll pull in. And I know a handful of families that swim there. The swim family, the swim team, there's probably 10 swim teams in this area in Round Rock. There's the Dolphins, there's the
There's a lot of them.
There's a bunch of them. And they all have to share these pools all over the place. So the swimming pool would probably still stay open year-round, the lap portion would still, because they're swimming. If you know this guy named Parshall, his name's Mark Parshall, he works for the school district, his daughters went and they're swimming. He said they used to swim 8 months out of the year. His kids came back and said, we want to swim year-round. Supposedly swimmers, if you lay off for a week or two, you lose your momentum. And so these kids want to swim, and they have high school swim teams, and then they have what they call league or whatever. Those swimming pools get used almost year-round. And the same one over at Lake Creek, the one over at Rattan Park, which is over by Jollyville, Palm Springs Elementary, the one up at Sendero. Sendero Spring, what's that?
Forest Creek and Avery Ranch.
Forest Creek, those get used all the time.
The answer is the facility is not likely to sit there not being used very often at all. Once it's built and in.
And part of the thing is they don't have enough practice areas. The YMCA, which is covered, is one of the few indoor areas that you can swim in the Round Rock area. They have that booked a lot. The one over at Mickey Kresbach, that's not a good, what I understand, it's not a good practice. And you can't have tournaments in there, not Mickey Kresbach, Clay Madsen. They also want deeper pools. I didn't know that either until we all went through this. They lock them at a certain temperature, 82 degrees, not 84 or whatever. I don't remember the number is, but you got to have them just right. So there's a lot of details. And as Corey said, and said this attracts people from all over the state. A lot of these families have to travel to Corpus, they have to travel to Houston, Dallas area, and they go and they stay 2 or 3 days at a time. So the city's interested, the community here would be a great idea. Instead of traveling, you would have people come from all over. I think there's a swimming pool in Belton or Killeen, but it's very small and there's no spectator stands or whatever. So as Corey said, all the facilities around Rock get used pretty regularly, so I don't think it would sit idle. And then it should be opened up also to the community as well, like Clay Madsen, if you want to go.
Now, when the Round Rock High School replacement was happening, part of that, they said the old buildings had asbestos and it would be cheaper to build a new building than to try to take the asbestos out of those. But I thought you just told me that they're keeping the kids in the buildings that they said had asbestos, and that was a justification for building the high school.
So that's a great question about the old parts of Round Rock High School. I refer to that as BC, that was before Tory, so I can't speak to what was told. You're not the first person that's told me that. I can tell you that we do regular inspections of our schools, and our schools are safe. I can tell you older buildings bring issues and concerns. And this community has already invested a lot of money into Round Rock High School, into the new. You can see the new wing is set to open up.
Oh, I understand that, but I am confused about why asbestos was a problem before, but it's not now.
I'll tell you that. So Catherine and I were on the bond study in 2008, 9 years ago, this time, right this time. And I remember building 100, which is the original building one, that's the main one where it has the awning and all that. There was a discussion there about repurposing that, and the facilities director at the time said there's a ratio that if you have to refurbish so much, it's not even worth it, because part of it, and that's 40 years old, that building is. As time goes on, the buildings, you need more plugs, you need better ventilation, you need wider rooms. Danny would know more about that, but it changes. So it's not a good one, but one of the topics was asbestos. And with asbestos abatement, there are rules and guidelines that are very strict about it, but as long as you don't put a nail or scratch it or cut a hole in it, you can leave it as it is, but you have to be real careful. So it's still safe, but in the long run, that building will have to be.
It's not the asbestos siding or structure. Probably a third to a half of the homes in this neighborhood have asbestos in them right now. Acoustic ceilings, okay?
Well, I know at our church,
But as long as you're not,
under the tiles of all things have asbestos in it.
well, as long as they're not sawing on it, cutting, drilling, hammering and stuff, it's fine. It's when they start doing, Chad says, the federal guidelines for abatement, when you start dealing with asbestos are just, I mean, they're punitive to go in.
These buildings have, they will be torn down at some point because of
Building,
the asbestos.
that's part of the master plan, but a part of that we can't room until this other high school. So they're still using the buildings. We have our board meetings in building 100. So that's where you see all those pictures and everything, that's where it all happens.
So I hope there's no problem with air quality, because we're in that boardroom quite regularly.
I know, I just remember that was one of the reasons why we had to build a new one and couldn't stay in those buildings.
My understanding is that it's primarily long-term exposure to working with asbestos. That was the real cause of the scare in the first place, and actually it doesn't cause any real problems even if you're living next to it.
So they were wrong then when they told us before that we had to build a new school because
I think it's only recently that's really been.
Problem with asbestos is inhaling the fibers.
Yeah.
That's where the harm in asbestos is.
Okay.
Will any of the new buildings or facilities be built green, like solar panels or rate rails to sort of work towards self-sustainability and maybe decrease energy use?
So when it comes to the quality of our new buildings, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in terms of all of the fancy certifications and things like that, because that's not my role, and I'd be happy to connect to the person who can speak to that. But I can tell you our reputation when we build new schools is to be able to buy and purchase things that make them more efficient, because ultimately that is what is best in the interest of taxpayers. The green stuff is great, but honestly, when we look at it, it's the taxpayer and the long-term savings. Most schools will last for a long time. You saw the slide about the tax rate. Maintenance and operation is part of your tax rate, and then it's called INS, or debt service, is the debt portion. That's what we use to pay down bonds. Our concern as a school district is addressing that M&O on a regular basis, right? So INS is what pays down our debt service every year, which is what we use to pay off bonds to build these new facilities. The M&O is a fixed number, it's $1.04, and 88% of that goes to salaries to fund teachers. We are facing, Trustee Chadwell mentioned Robin Hood and with Austin ISD. We are facing that as a school district next year, where we will be sending, we are projected to send a check, there's nothing done to the Texas finance system, school finance system, to cut a check of local property dollars and send that to the state. That is generated from M&L. So when we look at new buildings and opportunities to create efficiencies to save dollars, we do take that opportunity. So I would imagine that there will be items on that, because I know that there have been in the new elementary school we opened this year, and then the new middle school. But our chief operating officer and I can connect you with an email address if you want to get some specifics as to what that
So Margaret, there's always a push for green. We do have some of our schools, our new elementary have big cisterns that collect the water. I think they're LEED certified, which is efficiency and things. Every few months, I get an email from somebody, why don't you have more solar panels over? And it's always been roughly 15 to 20 years payback on a solar panel. Now, so we do have some solar panels, but it's not this huge, not yet. But one of these days, I think it will get to that point where we can say, it's a good idea to make an investment in solar right now. But I've always heard 15 to 20 years payback. So if it costs an extra $1 million, it'll take you 15, 20 years to pay that, recoup that at the current rates. So it could change any minute, and it could be creating some new silicon that makes it a lot more efficient. And I think we
What's
look
the
at
cost of that compared, how much does it cost to run AC, HVAC?
So that's another thing too. If you go on our website, I can't remember the last time we had it, but we have an energy efficiency manager, and he goes in and we had one guy he would come and do a presentation on a regular basis, and he would negotiate our electric rates and our gas BTU, and he said, I squeezed this one out and I've done this one, and they have all these, just as Corey was saying with the electric badges to get in, have everything on timers, all the lights turn off and all the air conditioning comes on. Some of the air conditioners though are 40 years old, and there's one switch on and one switch off. You turn on the whole school. Now it's gotten better where you say, okay, I'm going to turn on the cafeteria first and get that heated or warmed up or cooled off, and then the gym and things like that. It's getting a lot better, so they're really, it's amazing how much technology's out there just to run a school.
And I think you touched on, one of the things to remember is if you go back 60, 70 years, they were building buildings that might last 20 years. Now, you guys can probably answer this. When we build these new buildings with the new technology and the new materials, and more expensive buildings, obviously, what's the projected life of these buildings?
That's a great question. I've never gotten the answer as to what is I've never heard that question asked. I'd be happy to ask it. I can tell you buildings are meant to last longer and longer than ever before, and part of the capital renewal replacement cycle.
So we were always told as board members, 50 years, count on 50 years.
Right.
These tilt-up walls that you see, they pour the big contract, they tilt them up and all, the walls will last for probably 100 years.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So that's the more technology we come in building materials, we're now building a school that we're not going to be having to go through in 20, 25 years and revamp everything in it. We may be talking 30, 40 years down the road before we have to start spending money on that. Of course, I will be around. A lot of you youngsters will be.
Who knows, we're going to get like VR systems in the classroom in the next 10
I have
years.
some questions about the kind of mechanics of how the bonds are sold. So if y'all are going to sell bonds over, you said it spread it out over like 5 years, 3. Is there a risk that like interest rates could change and that we're voting on something now based on a projection that changes?
That's a great question, and I can speak at a very, very generic level regarding the way that we structure our bond sales. So on this bond, if it were to pass, we'd be looking at 4 bond sales over 3 years. That means we would sequence these projects out to make sure that our construction team can manage, the project management component to this, and that we can minimize the impact of the tax rate. That if we went out and sold it all at once, your tax rate would go right up right away. What we do as part of that is they actually have he has forecasted, Randy Scott's our CFO, forecasted for interest rate increases that I would say are pretty conservative in terms of that he has projected, I believe, even to go up. I don't have the number in front of me, so I don't want to say what it is, but I will say he has projected increasing rates in each of the 4 bond sales for rates to go up. Frequently what ends up happening, we forecast here historically, the rates have usually been much less than that if we've been able to refinance and recoup some savings. So that is the reason why, because we get asked the question, why don't you just go for a 10-year bond and plan out for a long time, go for a larger dollar, but then you're not coming out for another bond every year. And the rationale is just what you're saying, the risk that would go into that and being able to plan and forecast multiple years out, not only for interest rates, but also construction costs and inflation. It's a great thing to be in Central Texas because we have a booming economy, a low unemployment rate. It is a terrible thing to build right now in Central Texas because there's so much going on. So we have to project over the course of this bond inflation and rising costs for construction, which we've seen a lot in the last year. So to give you some you saw $120 million for a high school. Cedar Ridge was built for right around 100, and that was only 10 years ago. The new high school in Leander that opened this year is over about 106 or 107. We're very comparable to the new high school that is going to be built in Hayes. It's going to be smaller. They're asking for voters for 120 million for a smaller school, for a high school. We're asking for 130.
What's the term of the bonds you're selling?
I believe it's spread out, and I don't want to I don't have the specifics. I'd be happy to get our CFO to explain. I can tell you that we pay most of our bond debt in the first half, and most of them are 20 or 25 years.
Well, that's scaring the hell out of me because on each of the last bond elections, you guys have been asking for money for technology refreshes on things that are going to last 4 years or so.
So, sir, that's a great question.
I can't see borrowing money to buy something that's going to last 4 years.
And we feel exactly the same way, sir, and that's why I said they're all spread out differently. The funds used to pay off technology for 5 years. We're paying those off in 5 years, and that's the reason why we can.
And the interest rate you're seeing for that is?
I don't have it in front of me right now.
Round numbers, what are you guys getting on bonds for?
The projections, I think, for the first sale are 4%.
So that's part of the reason why Round Rock ISD has the best bond rating in the state is they sell that some of these.
No, I just don't see the point of borrowing money and paying interest on it
for
something that's going to be obsolete in 3 years.
Well, so as we said, a lot of the technology we have lasts for 5 years, and so that's what. But he also says we pay this off, and we try to pay it off in accelerated term. We always
do it on M&O. It's not a capital item; it's an expense item.
That's a great question, and we hear that frequently. The idea of a technology is not a capital item. Our computer life cycle systems are 5 years. Some of our other technology projectors are about 5 years as well. Some of those others are security cameras are like 7 or 8 years. So that's a great question we see frequently. Why is that considered a capital item? And I can tell you the way that we are currently funded, we could not fund technology devices to the level that we have at M&O.
That's per state law,
of our,
correct?
Excuse me?
That's per state law, correct?
Not per state law. It's just
Or go to the voters and ask to move your M&O up.
That has been.
In the long run, that should end up in savings to your
Didn't they say that
your bond payers because you're not borrowing the money and paying interest to somebody.
So to increase the M&O rate would be what's called a tax ratification election. So we're at $1.04. That is what the state funding formula sets us at. We can go up to ask voters to go up to as much as $1.17, and you saw some of our peer districts have done that. The challenge for us in reaching and increasing M&O, as I mentioned, Robinhood. Robinhood is impacted by the M&O. So actually, if we were to increase M&O, that would send more dollars to the state. That would be more local property tax dollars would be going to the state to funding across the state to fund education. So INS, the debt service, stays totally in Round Rock ISD. So that is one of the reasons. We certainly hear your concern. Our CFO would agree with you. You know, technology
I'm looking at the
is not
numbers, and you guys have 2% student growth rate. This bond is 90% bigger than the last one, which was only 3 years ago. You've gone from 299 to 572, and I can't understand why, to tell you the truth.
That's a great question. So from 2008 to 2014, we did not have a bond election. During that time, we saw the district continue to grow, and it was much higher than 2%. We were seeing 3 and 4% growth rates. The rationale, if you think about it, why there wasn't a bond between 2008 and 14, were we had the mortgage crisis in 2008. And in 2011, we had a state funding crisis in education as well. So those were some of the things that went into factor. In 2014, we had a $299 million bond, but that Citizens Bond Committee had $600 million in identified needs and scaled it back. So I can tell you that those needs did not go away. And new buildings got older, facilities and things got older, and that's what it addressed. And I mentioned a $900 million total. So that is the cost of the escalation.
The wish list is easy. What's worth paying for is, I mean, it's a rather staggering amount of growth in what you're asking for. I mean, it was $299 in 2014. It was $293 in 2008. It was $267 in 2006. this seems just way higher than
2014.
what I've seen in the past. And looking at all the projects, they're all interesting, but I don't see.
Well, how are we going to facilitate the growth over?
It's only grown at 2%.
Well,
I mean, it's not that much growth. I just heard that we're going to tear down a whole chunk of Round Rock High School after we build the new high school. Surely we can live with what we've got, couldn't we?
I'd be happy to stand by and answer any questions after this meeting. I want to make sure everyone has an
Let me
opportunity
say
to have
this,
their
sir. Captain and I were on the 08 bond committee, and I remember that at that time there was 750 or something. We cut it back down to 299 or whatever, 200. It had to be in the 300. And at that time, there was a lot of deferred maintenance. So that's some of the stuff is, we kept pushing some of this stuff off. So we've been, I think, as I said, manage the money well. We, the school district, have. You want to say something?
Well, I was just going to ask Corey, I don't want to try to keep people's patience too much, but I wanted to make a comment if I could.
Well, is everybody good with their questions? Again, I'll stick around, Dr. Preston will stick around and answer questions.
I will too. I'll be around. Go ahead. So,
I guess Mike has one last question.
Oh, no, I'm resting my arm.
Yeah, if you don't mind. As Chad said, I was going to come up here so I can talk to everybody. Served on the board from 2010 to 2014. I had 2 kids who went through Round Rock ISD. In fact, we moved to Round Rock 27 years ago now, specifically because we were in California. People said Round Rock ISD is where you want to be. So long ago as that, and we watched that growth. But they're out of the house almost off the credit cards, not quite. But so I'm, like you, a taxpayer and a citizen. And so what I want to do is speak in favor of these bond propositions. I also I don't know you, sir. If you're not already involved in a citizens committee for the district, I hope you do get involved, because that's exactly the kind of interest and commitment we need, and you as well. We need those sorts of, and I say we as if I'm still there, because it's hard to lead this great team.
As a community.
So one of the things that we do have, that the district has, it's not just a citizens bond study committee that looks at these needs and evaluates them from the perspective of parents and community members and business people and taxpayers, but a bond oversight committee, after the fact, reviews the bond project and makes sure the district is using the money responsibly, looking at what they're doing. They report to the board so the board can ask the important questions. In my time on the board, I saw 2 things that this district does very well. And one, that it is to accommodate the growth. And we are considered a fast growth district. And this community is growing. More people come in every day, and we want to attract more people. So the Austin Chamber of Commerce, well, I understand that. I drive I-35 every day. So yes, I'm a little ambivalent. The Austin Chamber of Commerce, the Round Rock Chamber of Commerce have both endorsed this bond because they know great public schools are good for business. So to accommodate growth at the same time as accommodating sort of the needs of consumers of a school district, and that's parents and business people, because you want to supply the workforce, because you want these great students to stay in the community, you have to give choices. More and more school districts are required, in order to attract students, because we have competition, to give great choices. And that's one of the things I'm really excited about the Career Tech High School, because there are students who say, you know what I really want to do, I want to get my education, but I'd also like to get a certificate and be able to go straight out and earn a trade. And this gives those students that choice. So I'm really excited about that. I'm also excited about the fine arts and athletics. One of the things I learned is that full disclosure, my children are artists and musicians, so I do think it's important. But one of the things we learned during my time on the board, we got statistics back, a report every year, and what you find out is the students that are involved in fine arts and athletics, these are the students who have the least disciplinary problems, the most involvement. They're really engaged and focused students, and so I'm happy to see the district wanting to continue to invest in those opportunities. And then the other thing I saw that the district did very well, and Corey alluded to it, is fiscal responsibility. When I came on the board in 2010, first thing I was hit with is we were dealing with the recession had sort of made its way to us. We knew that the state was not going to do what I consider to be their obligation under the Constitution to provide adequate funding. We had to cut the budget. I don't know if y'all remember that. We had meetings where we invited citizens in to help figure out how to cut that budget. And we did it, and we weathered the storm significantly better than other districts because of this district's history of fiscal conservatism, not just responsibility, conservatism. They have always conservatively managed taxpayer dollars, so we've been able to provide education while keeping that tax rate. I mean, really, to say it's one of the lowest in Central Texas, that's a really big deal in this area. Just the Fitch and Moody bond ratings, that's not trivial. So I'm really proud that the district has been able to do that. Are they going to use these bonds responsibly and conservatively? I say look at our history, and I think it bears that out. So I'm, as a taxpayer, business person, parent of grown children, I'm all in for the 3 bonds, 3 propositions, and I hope y'all too.
And just to make a comment on one of your comments, I too have a performing arts student who is now doing her student teaching in Round Rock and hopes to next year have a job in Round Rock. So she went through Chisholm Trail and Round Rock High School and is hoping to get in here. And
see, that's a success story for you and for us, so.
Especially with the fine arts opening up.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna wrap things up here real quick, and then they'll be around to answer some questions. I'm just gonna add a little caveat here. Round Rock has probably one of the strongest economic development programs around. And along with one of the lowest tax rates for school, we have one of the lowest city tax rates. And when businesses come to town and spend their money to build and create tax revenue for us, one of the top 3 things they look at are the school districts. Because they're gonna be hiring people that wanna move here, they're going to be looking, the first thing people when they're going to move look at are school districts. Those businesses that move here and spend money keep our property tax rates low. So having a quality school district to me is like #1, top of the list above and beyond anything else. And when you have that, the rest of it just comes downhill. The great communities, the safe communities, the quality of life, the low taxes and so forth, this kind of perpetuates itself down the road. So I'm not speaking for the association, for me. I hope that you guys will support this. That being said, we'll kind of adjourn, and if you want me to hang out and ask questions of Corey Chatter, Captain, y'all please do, and thanks for coming.